Hello, everyone. I am Wajid. Joining me today is none other than Mariya Karimjee. She has been my professor for 3 semesters now, and it's been a fun 3 semesters. But yeah, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, hi, I am Mariya Karimjee. I am a professor at Habib and a full-time journalist who's been doing this for about 12 years now.
So, I want to discuss today with you just the topic of empathy because with the current political climate today everywhere, the world is a shitstorm, like literally, with Trump being elected and with everything that's going on in Palestine. And to see everyone's reaction to that, whether it's online or whether it's in like with the people that you know and interact with, it's very clear to me at least that there's some sort of desensitization that has taken place where like empathy is basically kind of going extinct. And I wanted to know kind of your perspective on it. But first, I want to know, what is your criteria for empathy? What makes you kind of have a judgment for people, whether they are empathetic enough or not?
I guess that I want to answer with a question first,
Okay.
which is that like, how are we defining empathy for the purposes of this conversation?
That would be my question to you as to what you define as empathy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess like for me, empathy is just being able to take a step back and try and see things from the perspective of the person on the other side, right? That's like a very base level definition of empathy. Like, can I put myself in that person's shoes, and does that give me a wider understanding of it? Is that how you're also defining it?
Yeah. But with that, I want to ask how you would differentiate empathy versus sympathy.
Well, sympathy is me like looking at the person and having a thought and a feeling about them versus placing myself in their shoes and trying to understand where they're coming from. Like, I think that's the main difference.
Okay, so that's like the main criteria.
Yeah. Like with sympathy, I feel like it's a little bit more like you can have pity for someone.
It's more disassociated.
Yeah.
Yeah. But do you agree with my point that like empathy, now that we've defined what it is on a decline?
On a decline.
Yeah.
Like where?
Just amongst the masses, I would say. Particularly, I would say if you look at like online forums and what takes place there specifically.
Yeah, I think that online it's much harder
Yeah.
to look across the room, right? And put yourself in someone else's shoes. Like that is almost impossible to do in a space that exists only virtually. I don't think that it's declining online. I think that it's just really hard to accomplish online, right?
Versus in person where it's much easier.
I think that like, yes, like in general, once you've met someone and you've had like chats with them, it's much easier to see them as a full concrete human with like good parts and bad parts as opposed to like just a caricature.
I guess I want to ask you, because what you're referring to is more on a micro level from like person to person and one-on-one. What about regarding like more of a broader kind of context with like social issues, for example, and how they're received online versus in person? If you were to have a discussion online with people versus in person with people, granted you don't know these people in both scenarios, do you think one...
Yeah, right. Like for example, over Eid, I went to one Eid Milan, okay, and my friend was in town from the U.S. And her parents were in town from Canada, and her khala had this Eid thing, and I went, even though I was going to know very few people. And while I was there, and my friend has been talking up her dad for a while, she's like, "You're going to love him." And I mean, the way that she described it is like, he doesn't do small talk, you don't do small talk, y'all will be friends. Right. And I get there and like, I kid you not, like 1 minute and 30 seconds into meeting this man, I had already picked a fight with him.
About what, can I ask?
Yeah. Imran Khan.
Oh, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And it came about because my friend's husband asked me a question and I was like trying to answer it. And uncle walked into the room as I was explaining that in 2013, when I covered the elections in Pakistan, I was already not an Imran Khan fan. And I said that like, since then, my negative feelings towards Imran Khan have I said, in 2013, I already hated him. And since then, my negative feelings about him have only intensified.
Yeah.
And Uncle very calmly comes and sits down and he's like, why have they intensified? And I just did not see it for the trap that it was. And so I start listing, the like best of tour highlights of Imran Khan and bad things that he's done. And then realize that he was actually, in fact, like a die-hard PTI supporter.
Okay.
Now, he's like an elderly gentleman, very sweet,
Yeah.
very accomplished. And so, like, I'm not, like, he's saying, like, legitimately what I consider stupid stuff.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm not going to be impolite. I'm not going to, like, steamroll over his opinion.
Yeah.
Because social niceties require me not to raise my voice at an older gentleman, right?
Yeah.
So then very politely, I'm doing things like, but uncle, what actual policies did Imran Khan put in place that we can consider like net good, right?
Yeah.
Or where I'm like, what is his succession plan? And this leads in this conversation to a moment where basically I like lean forward and like very gently, I'm like, do you think that he's getting out of jail? Right? And that's a hard question, I think, to ask someone who's in their 70s about someone who's in their 70s. And to be like, but you get it, right? Like, he's going to die in there most likely. There's a very slim chance. And my question for you is that what is his succession plan?
Yeah.
If you're trying to tell me that he is different than all of the other politicians, right, then what is his succession plan? Who is he empowering to take over his party? He's in jail. Someone should be like, we should not still be looking at the man in jail to like get us out of here.
Yeah.
And if this conversation had been like an Instagram comment, if this had been like a conversation in a group chat online, it would not have proceeded with the kind of politeness that had happened with in real life, right?
From your side or from...
I think both of our sides.
Okay.
Like we're at this like large gathering. I mean, you've met WhatsApp uncles in the flesh.
Yeah.
They're not particularly polite, right? And like, again, like I have had this conversation many, many times, which is why even if like uncle is saying like, oh no, but the SAS program, like I know exactly, like, which is what everyone says when you're like, what are the good policies that Imran Khan has put in place? And then I can like pick that apart, like moment by moment, right? That stuff I'm not going to do online. Online, I'm just going to villainize that person.
Yeah.
In person, what's happening is that I'm looking at uncle and I'm like, man, like, you are as old as this country, right? Like you are literally the same age as this country. You have never known anything other than Pakistan. You no longer live here, but feel a real love for it. And you have 3 real shitty political parties to pick from. And you're in your head, you're like, I got to pick one. And this seems like the least worst of the lot.
Yeah.
And even though I'm like, we don't have to pick any of these 3 shitty options. Right. For him, he's like, no, I really just got to make a stand.
Yeah.
Right. And ultimately, when we got to this point in the conversation in real life where I was like, there's 3 political parties and I'm allowed to say that they all suck. Right. He said, well, are there 3 political parties? Right.
Yeah.
And like the thing that he's saying there is that like, isn't it just the military? And like, that's like a real point of agreement where we both are coming at our different viewpoints from the same place of criticizing an institution.
And you feel like you wouldn't have gotten to that point of agreement had you not kind of, I guess, like been open-minded to hearing what he has to say and kind of approaching it gently.
I wasn't even open-minded to what he has to say. It's just that I was like forced to be nice.
Okay.
Right? Because I couldn't start screaming at a stranger, number one. Number two, I couldn't check out of the conversation. Like I couldn't get up and leave.
Yeah. Okay.
On WhatsApp, I can just forward or screenshot the unhinged thing someone is saying online and send it to like the echo chamber of my friends who already share my opinion.
Yeah.
And then just get the instant validation that I need. And then like, or help formulate the thoughts or do this new thing that a friend of mine was telling me about, which is that when people have like they have a gut instinct about the thing that they feel in an online conversation, what they'll do is they'll ask ChatGPT to come up with defensive arguments and then repeat the ChatGPT arguments.
I've done that before, yes.
You guys are all crazy. Think for yourselves, man. All of you need to learn to think for yourselves.
It was more about figuring out who's right in an argument. So I put in both sides and asked ChatGPT.
Was the other person
right.
participating?
No, but I wasn't involved in this argument. Yeah, it was of 2 friends and I just put in both their sides.
Wait, why didn't you already have a take?
What do you mean?
Like these are your friends.
Oh, yeah. I knew who I was siding with.
And then you just wanted confirmation?
Yeah, I mean, just for fun. It was for shits and giggles, honestly. But yeah.
What did ChatGPT agree with
It
you?
agreed with the other person who I did not agree with. But yeah.
Did it help change your mind?
No, because I just fed it more things from the other side that I agreed with to kind of shift
Then did
it.
you make ChatGPT agree with you?
Yeah, and I was very happy with the results.
So as an exercise in empathy, how do we do?
Horrible. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about. So like when you talked about like kind of forcing yourself to be nice, I guess like is that what it ultimately kind of comes down to when you wholeheartedly disagree with someone, you kind of have to force yourself. In a way, it's like disassociating, but at the same time, it's also kind of like putting yourself in their shoes, like, or that's how it appears, at least with your, forced niceness. Would you agree with like?
I don't know. There's some topics where I'm like, no, you just have a really bad and wrong opinion, and I kind of like disassociate, right? Like I can't empathize with them. There's just like a couple of things in this world where like if you have like a really just bad, morally corrupt opinion on something, there's no amount of empathy in person that I'm going to be able to handle. Right. And like everyone has those topics for them. Imran Khan, unfortunately, is not someone that I think like, I don't think liking Imran Khan makes you morally bankrupt.
Okay. Fair.
I don't. But like, there's a lot of things in this world that I do think make you morally bankrupt. I ended like a 15-year long friendship because my best friend dated a Trump supporter. And I was like, right? I could not get past it. It was like 15 years of friendship. And I was like, I cannot believe that you're dating a man who voted for Trump. Who does not regret voting for Trump.
Did it matter at all whether she was a Trump supporter or not?
He was not.
Okay. Damn. That's... Yeah. Okay, so...
but I was like, look, this is really a line in the sand. As a white man in America, even one from a marginalized community, right? The threat to you from Trump is not as great as the threat to me under Trump. And so you're able to move past this. And this is a fundamental flaw in our friendship that I will never be able to move past. You do not see this person as standing against every single thing that I thought you stood for.
So I'm assuming you did have a conversation here with this said friend, right? And or was it just you're dating this man who's a Trump supporter, so therefore cutting you off? Or was it more of a, hey, can you explain to me where your head is at over here? Or I'm just asking.
But also like, what are the good reasons?
There aren't any, but I'm just curious
it's kind
whether...
of like, like you have a filter on and it makes you look really good. And then all of a sudden you stop using that filter. And like, you're like, oh, that's my real face. Okay. That's kind of how it felt to me.
Okay.
Like there's nothing that he could have said or nothing that he could have done that would have like put that filter back on.
Got it. So that's like more of the objective versus subjective thing you were talking about, where like there are things like Imran Khan where... Sure, you could find a middle ground somewhere, and you can too if you want to, but there are certain things too that are just like off limits where you don't even want to entertain finding a middle ground. Got it. Okay. So with that being said, I wanted to ask you if there has ever been a moment where, you know how you talked about like this conversation with this uncle sort of being a trap and you didn't see it for what it was.
Yeah, because he asked so nicely. He was like, wait, why? And then I was like, oh, let me tell you why. Without realizing that he was like the biggest Imran Khan supporter at that party.
So with that being said, like with the context of certain conversations being a trap, have you ever regretted sort of extending your empathy towards someone?
No, Wajid, I do the opposite, which is that I put these little traps out into the world for everyone to fall inside of. And once you fall in the trap, I will like cut you. Yeah, I'll just be like, okay, cool. I know.
Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, no, like I will ask men at parties how they feel. This is like a 2023 thing that I used to do. It's no longer relevant in 2025. Okay. But like at a party, if I'm trying to assess like a person's personality, like, how do you feel about Elon Musk? And immediately I got it. I got the answer. Right. Like, do you think that he's some sort of like entrepreneur genius,
Yeah.
right? Or do you think that he's like a white
Horrible person,
liberal, like South African who made all of his money off of enslaving people during apartheid
Yeah.
and then leveraged that for good branding? Right? Like, how informed are you?
Yeah.
And then I just like, again, like it will reveal a real thing about you to
Got
me.
it.
Is a trap I've put you in. And
Yeah.
then even if you're like the nicest person in the world, even if you have the correct opinion about like 90% of things, you've just like told me a thing about yourself that I'm not going to get past.
Okay.
So like, am I the most empathetic person alive? No, because I'm just like,
I was gonna say, it seems like you have your guard up when it comes to like offering empathy towards people.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess what I meant more so by my question was, has anyone ever made you regret kind of giving them, in this case, like the benefit of the doubt?
Oh, yes. Haven't we all?
For sure.
Okay.
I just want to know where kind of you lie in that. Would you say those experiences have kind of made you have a guard up, or
No, actually,
those
I
aren't
think that made me
related?
feel. Yeah, I don't think that. Ooh, that's a good question. I do not think that I have my guard up because people have eroded my sense of empathy.
Okay.
I think that the moments in which someone has really betrayed me or betrayed like how I feel about where I placed my empathy, right, have actually driven me to be like extra empathetic to people in similar situations.
Yeah.
I cannot operate from the assumption that most people are bad, right? But I can operate from the assumption that like most people are just not gonna see the world from the same perspective as me.
That's fair. And that is the safest way to move forward, I think, as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's like medium safe,
Yeah, for sure.
right? Like the safest way is to just like not engage with anyone.
Yeah. But see, that's like a kind of formula you've personally created for yourself. Do you think, on a more general basis, do you have an understanding as to why, if we're going forth with our thesis statement being that empathy is in fact on a decline?
That's your thesis statement.
Sure. Do you think that like there's a certain reason why people feel kind of comfortable not extending
I think there's
grace to other people?
extending grace to other people.
Grace, and also, what were you thinking I was going to say?
I have no idea now. My brain is empty.
Okay. But yeah, I would say grace and kind of more like, I guess, being open-minded, being nice, and kind of hearing people out, and just, I guess, being like so comfortable being rude and like, straight up like, no, I don't want to hear your point. It's wrong. Even if it's a topic of conversation, I guess, that where a middle ground can be met. This is all subjective, I'm realizing as I'm saying this, but I am curious as to what, if you first, A, think people are comfortable just being mean nowadays, and B, if so, why that is.
I do not think that people are comfortable being mean nowadays.
Okay.
I just do not believe that.
Okay, what-
Please do not. Yeah.
What makes you say that?
I just think that generally at their core, people are good.
That's at their core, right? I'm talking about how they're performing, what they're putting out there.
In real life?
In general. We're talking.
Like I'm talking about real life.
Okay.
Like I'm like, people are not mean. I think most people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And if
I have
we were,
never ever been in a situation where someone is not operating with like the, I don't know, safety net of social niceties in any given situation.
Really?
Yeah.
That's very interesting, actually.
Like I'm not going into any event where like so and so has had some beef with blah blah blah.
No way.
And then like there's a third party person who's meeting, like, I don't know, what did we call them? Blah 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 and so, right? Like so and so has a beef with blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Okay. Blah 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 has done like terrible things.
Yeah.
Okay. You're friends with so and so.
Yeah.
Okay. Right? I don't meet anyone who's friends with so and so who's coming in and is immediately giving the cold shoulder to blah blah blah.
This is like shattering my world right now. Like
No, but like
actually.
now my world is being shattered.
I think
'Cause
right
I'm
now-
like, wait, what do you mean people aren't doing that? Like, why would you just automatically loyally believe so and so?
Oh, that is how I function in life. That is
People are unreliable narrators of their own lived
for
experiences.
sure. Yeah.
And like 20 days from now, so and so could do something that all of a sudden makes you think, oh shit. When
Oh, and
they
that
were telling
happens
that thing
all
about
the
blah,
time.
blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. Yeah, I think in this scenario between you and me, I think it has more to do with maturity.
Yeah.
I think I think you're more of the mature demographic that
I'm also
kind of
like
understands
15 years older than you.
that. But yeah, I think wow, you really kind of
You will grow out of it.
Oh, I know, and I hope so too because I know this is not a healthy way to function.
But like you're not listening to your story, like your friends' stories about like an unhinged thing that someone else you don't know did with like a layer of skepticism. You're just like I'll
It depends
hate
on
them
who
for
the
you.
friend is. If I know them to be someone who kind of adds their own layer of like, like dramatics, then yeah, I kind of do side eye them a little bit. But if it's a friend who's had, for the most part, a clean record, yeah.
And then what are you behaving like in that situation when you walk in and then blah 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 who has no idea that you're so and so's
Yeah.
friend?
Oh,
Right.
I'm like so mean.
How? Like what is like give me an example of how mean you are.
Cold shoulder.
You're
And
just ignoring them, just like cut direct.
I would no. Like if they were to say hi, I would say hi, but I would go out of my way to like give a very nasty hi. Yeah, but that's just me. And
It's a very nasty hi. I want to see
just
it.
like if you were to approach me and you were to say hi to me, I'd just be like hi, and kind of, and turn my back towards them. I'd say, I guess.
And what's the purpose of that?
Just to be like, oh, I know your business, I know your story, I know what you're like. Like, don't.
Who is it benefiting?
I guess my friendship with that person. Not in that way. Wait, that sounded terrible.
No, I mean like the whole
The
thing
way
is
that I
a
said
little
that.
bit terrible.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I'm just saying.
Okay. I want to shift this conversation, keeping this
Wait,
in
no,
mind.
I want to stay on it for a
Okay,
second.
okay.
I just want to say, but don't you ever feel bad because you just didn't have the full story?
No, and this is where I'm like shifting the conversation, because if it's, let's say, something that's, and I want to know your perspective on this, if that other person has done something objectively bad, where you're like, a jury is needed for this at this point, where do you stand there now?
Ooh, I probably would make sure that no one's in the same space as that person anymore.
Okay, and if that person tried approaching you,
I would probably call them out on it. I wouldn't do this.
okay.
I was just like, I don't want to speak with you.
Well, that's one of the things that I do.
Yeah.
Is like, I don't feel comfortable having this conversation, and I walk away.
That's actually way more polite than I am.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, but like, again, like there are like lines in the sand, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if someone did something really terrible to my friend,
Yeah.
right? And then I had to be at a social gathering with them and they were for some absurd reason coming up to me trying to be my
Yeah.
friend.
And this doesn't happen to you?
No, it does.
Okay. Okay.
But very rarely.
Okay.
And in that situation, I would just be like, look, I am friends with so-and-so. I do not want to speak with you. I do not want to make small talk.
Yeah.
Can you go away?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have done that in the past, like multiple
Yeah.
occasions.
Which I would say is like more than valid,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
But I will also say, like, we don't have to pretend that we like each other.
Yeah.
Right? Like if there's someone that I'm like beefing with,
Yeah.
which happens again very rarely.
Yeah.
And then we have to like go to some event and then we're there.
Yeah.
And that person is pretending real hard because I
Yeah.
think people really enjoy feeling like after they've done a bad thing that all is forgiven.
Yeah.
And like that person's been like shit to me.
Mm-hmm.
I will just say like we don't have to pretend.
Okay. That
We can give each other a wide berth.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think this is like very particular to Pakistani society, right? Because like everyone's lives are so enmeshed.
Yeah.
So then you do have to actually see those people over and over
Yeah.
again.
Karachi
But, like,
specifically,
Yeah, like a
it's
guy
like-
who was horrible to a friend of mine
Yeah.
in New York, right? Like the chances that I'm ever running into homeboy are like zilch. They're just not existent.
In New York? Really?
Yeah.
Isn't New York also like kind of a small bubble like Karachi, despite the amount of people that live there?
you can have small bubbles.
Yeah.
But then people try and date outside of those bubbles.
Okay, there is that option. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I don't think we answered my question.
I don't
really,
even remember your question.
which was basically like, do you feel like people are more comfortable? Okay, we talked about more in person, right? Now I want to shift it to more like online forums. Do you believe that people are more comfortable being rude as shit there?
Yeah, I don't think that's up for debate, man.
Yeah.
That's just straight
And
facts.
why do you think that is? Other than, I guess, just like not being able to see the person and obviously then being more comfortable behind your screen and being like kind of like a
I think
keyboard
people are just
warrior.
in general a little bit more mad all the time.
Okay. And that's where they decide to take it out.
Yeah, and they're online and their brains are fried.
Yeah.
Their brains are like super, super fried.
Yeah.
And like no one's doing enough in therapy.
Yeah.
No one's living life in the real world. Right?
Yeah.
Everyone's got to go touch grass.
Yeah.
And you're online and you've had a really, really shitty day at work, and then someone does something that even slightly triggers you, and then it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like people's like online hatred is sometimes like laughable, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
laughable. And like, and then everyone is like forced into this corner of like trying to like hit every imaginary critic in anticipation.
Yeah.
And people like don't read captions, etc.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like, have you ever been on Instagram where you're looking at people's like dog videos and the dog and like, look at my dog doing this cute thing, and then half the comments are like, your dog is not doing a cute thing. Your dog is
Your
super
dog's
stressed
ugly.
out, and you're a terrible, terrible dog
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah. There's like shit comments everywhere for sure.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about your take on something. How do you feel about people? And this is like in regards to our conversation about empathy. How do you feel about people that kind of go out of their way to play the devil's advocate just
Those
for the
people
sake
actually
of...
deserve zero empathy and should be like, I don't know,
Yeah.
firing squad.
And what do you have to say to people that hold the argument that playing the devil's advocate is just trying to see the other side for what it is? And
That person
therefore-
has no stakes in the game, so their opinion here doesn't matter. Like, I'm sorry, but like there are some things where, right? Like, I'm trying to think of an example. You're talking about like not like girls not getting to go to school.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're just like, oh yeah, my parents were totally fine with me doing great in O levels and A levels, but they're not super great with me going abroad for college, even though all of my brothers went abroad for college.
Yeah.
This is a super hypothetical example. I have no examples in my personal life of this.
Okay.
So now I'm just talking out my ass.
Yeah.
But like, say like that's like an opinion that
Okay.
someone had. I completely lost my train of thought in the middle of this conversation.
We're talking about devil's advocacy and like...
Right. And
yeah.
we're all sitting around in a room, and there's a bunch of people, both men and women, and everyone's like, yeah, that kind of sucks. It's really like a double standard. Your parents are like shit people.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's one person, but like, are they shit people? Like, bad stuff happens to women abroad. Like,
Yeah.
lots of women go abroad and then they change their thinking.
Yeah.
Right. I don't believe that myself, but like, I'm just trying to say, like, it is easy to understand where parents are coming from when
Yeah.
they say that.
Yeah.
Right. What are the stakes that person holds in that conversation? Are they a man? Do these experiences like affect them in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah.
Right? Are they a woman? Do these experiences like matter to them? What are
Yeah.
their stakes when they do
Yeah. Yeah. I guess like what you're saying, and I do agree with this as well, that there is a kind of mental checklist we all do have in our heads to where if certain boxes are ticked, I guess that kind of opens the door for empathy. So let's say in this argument or in this debate that you're having with these people, if a woman were to say that as opposed to a man, would you kind of go back a little bit and be like, okay, she's a victim of the patriarchy, and so there is some grace that can be extended there versus if a man were to say something like that?
No, I would probably judge them both equally.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
but like, yeah. I'm sorry, but like victims of the patriarchy are, right? Like they still have the internet in 2025.
Yeah. For sure.
So
for
if
sure.
they've like been
Yeah.
exposed to all of the same things that like everyone else is being exposed to,
Yeah.
they're not like living under lock and cage in their home.
Yeah.
If they're still a victim of the patriarchy,
Yeah.
like that's social conditioning.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
actually am showing like a real lack of empathy towards a hypothetical person. But I don't know that I would get on board.
Okay.
Yeah.
In this hypothetical, if I were to put these two people in front of you,
Which two
man
people?
and woman, who have the same opinion, right?
I would
about
treat them
this.
both the same.
No, and if I asked you if you had to pick one, like to kind of be like, okay, sure, I could give this person more grace.
I would give the man more grace.
Really?
Yes, really. Because I'm like, you're a moron. Like, you just don't know anything.
To the man.
Yeah.
But wait, you would give him more grace?
Like if a man had a really dumb opinion about this,
Yeah.
I would really chalk it up to him being a dumb man, and then I would have a little bit more empathy for him.
Really?
Yeah. This is going to be a viral clip.
Yeah, no way. That's so interesting, actually.
Right? Where I'm just like, all of your opinions are informed by being a dumb man.
But isn't that kind of like excusing?
No, I started off saying that I don't feel empathy
True.
towards either
True.
one of them.
Okay,
but if
I
you're
put you in
holding a
that
gun to my
position.
head and you're making me pick one. Okay,
Yeah.
It's definitely not like the woman in this situation. Like, much as she might be a victim of the patriarchy. I'm not saying that women aren't victims
No,
of the
of course,
patriarchy.
of
I like
course.
definitely believe it. But in my hypothetical of like girls
Yeah, there's a
not
very
going to
cliche
go
hypothetical. Not cliche,
Yeah.
sorry, niche hypothetical. Yeah.
yeah, of like women not being able to go to school. I mean, like the dad might be right? Yeah, fundamentally, I'm just like, why do you think that?
Yeah.
And also, like this comes down to the kids question, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of women,
Yeah.
when they hear another woman say, "I do not want to have children,"
Yeah.
right? Women have this instinctive response to tell you about how much they love their motherhood. They just
Yeah.
love it, or how
Yeah.
much they love their children, or how, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's nice. I'm
Yeah.
glad that you enjoy being a mom,
Yeah.
right? Like that, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
right. I'm like, it's not about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel in the same situation. If someone was like, but I can see where the dad's coming from. Like, I never wanted to go to school because I always wanted a family, right? And I'm like, that's nice for you.
Yeah. Okay. It's okay. Yeah. So it's like, don't impose your
Yeah.
shit onto other people.
Like, why can't, like,
Just
I'm
'cause you
sorry, but like,
enjoy it,
why
yeah.
can't you take a step back and like look at how like it's apples to oranges?
Yeah. Valid. True. Okay. I agree. Yeah. Okay. Having said all of that, again, I kind of want to circle back to like how people feel like they can be as shitty as they want online. With how things are going currently, in particular with like Israel versus like Gaza and that issue, we are like seeing videos and pictures every day, and like they somehow get worse and worse, like with each one that we're seeing, right? And like what's happening to people in Palestine. I want us to have that in mind versus, I remember you showed us a picture in class. It was of, I believe it was the napalm girl, who kind of became like the front face of like the Vietnam War, if I'm not wrong. And that kind of helped a lot to kind of, I mean, it kind of had like a domino effect after that of things slowly but not surely kind of lying down. It's this picture that I'm referring to. Yeah, this kind of spoke to, I guess, not spoke to a lot of people, but more so, yeah, this was more of a catalyst for people extending empathy, and therefore the result being the result that we got, which was like it's slowly dying down. There are, and this is not me comparing, because this would literally be me comparing apples to oranges, like comparing like trauma Olympics or something. But why is it that this picture back then did what it did versus the videos and pictures that we're seeing now isn't even like remotely?
Well, you know the answer to this.
I want to hear.
Like, this is, yeah. I'm not like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very obvious, right? Is that we're just like inundated with more violent images than we've ever been before.
Yeah.
Right? Violence on
We're
TV,
desensitized.
violence in film, violence on Instagram. We've seen it all.
Yeah.
The amount of violence that we have to see in order for us to like be permeated with any sort of like consciousness or feeling has just, it goes up and up and up and up. Right? And it's not the same for everyone.
Yeah.
But when you have a real dearth of information systems, when information is coming so slowly in such a trickle, right? Than a picture with a young girl expressing like legitimate pain,
Yeah.
right? I feel like in that situation, the stakes are different.
Yeah.
Right. All of a sudden, we've seen this thing that we've only heard about in theory. Also, like people's positioning was not like neutral at the time of that photograph. There was a hugely influential anti-war protest happening in the United States when that picture was printed.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, people didn't necessarily just care about what was happening to people in Vietnam. Right?
Yeah.
People were like, our sons are dying because we're sending them off to a unwinnable war where
Yeah.
we're severely outmatched and have no exit plan.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's like the emotional place that people are coming from.
Yeah.
With Gaza and Israel, like a common refrain that I hear from Americans,
Yeah.
right, is the fact that like they truly fundamentally believe that if they're like everything that's happening is wrong. Okay, Israel is bad. If the United States stops funding Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, all of those countries are going to bomb it out of existence. So
Yeah.
if we stop funding for even 1 second, it's going to be like evaporated off the
Yeah.
map. So like we see it, we see how bad it is. We also just feel like our hands are tied. Right? That's not like that's not the
Yeah.
same stakes as like
Yeah.
my son might die in this
Yeah.
war, or my brother might die, or I might die.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's where kind of the empathy factor comes into there in the Napalm Girl picture versus what's happening now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think that there's very, very few people
Yeah.
who have the same kinds of stakes.
Yeah.
Right? And Americans are able to like look at it obliquely. They're just like, oh man, this is a horrible thing that's happening. It's like pain
Yeah.
and suffering. Right? This is truly, truly horrible. And you'll
Yeah.
see a lot of the Americans who are showing a ton of rage and despair and grief around Gaza
Yeah.
are Jewish people that lived through the Holocaust
Yeah.
because they are able to see like real parallels there.
Yeah.
And the people who are having a hardest time with it are like white evangelicals who are Christian
Yeah.
and are seeing this as this like almost like far away, distant
Yeah.
situation that they cannot wrap their minds around because they've never had to kind of face the same kind of othering or pain or lack of stability in the same way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I think as humans we tend to center ourselves in our worldviews.
Yeah.
And like I think that's a harder worldview for you to
Yeah.
get around.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah. I guess my last question for you is, since we talked about desensitization and how we're like fed these violent pictures almost like every day, and like at this point, like for me personally, it's kind of also gotten to the point where you're scrolling and it just does not faze you at all, and you move on to the next like reel or whatever it is that's coming up on your algorithm. My question is, do you think that that is like kind of that's caused a differentiation between the older generation versus the younger generation when it comes to empathy? That the older generation...
I think that y'all are broken fundamentally.
Okay.
And I don't think that you guys can differentiate between like real activism and online activism.
Got it. Yeah.
And like that's a real problem.
So are you saying it's more performative empathy with like...
Yeah, like I'm sorry, but like every once in a while, I have this like weird crisis of confidence where I'm like, shit, do I need to post something about Gaza? I posted like 6 things about Balochistan in the last week. And I don't think we're talking about Balochistan enough, but like every other person is talking about Gaza. I'm not saying they shouldn't.
No, yeah.
Right? But I'm like, everyone's aware that the thing that's happening in Gaza is bad.
Yeah.
And it's been bad. And I see it. I don't think that information is getting lost somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? The thing that's happening in Balochistan, I do not hear people talking about.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And like, you know this about me.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm posting about it because like, it is interesting and it's more closely related to us, right?
That's
and
very
then I'm
true,
like,
yeah.
and I'm like, everyone who knows me,
Yeah.
like any person who's ever had an opinion near me,
Yeah.
right, knows how I feel about Gaza.
Yeah.
There's no way that you could know anything about me without knowing what my probable
Yeah.
feeling about it is
Yeah.
going to be,
Yeah.
right? So why do I need to go online and keep like plus oneing these takes? Why?
Yeah.
I do not think the same thing is true about most people in my life in Balochistan, right? Like I am taking notes.
Yeah.
I'm like, have you been really, really active on Gaza, but not talking about Balochistan? Like I'm holding that against you in some real way.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, why is one thing the thing that you are choosing to speak up about?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I think that the answer to that question is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Do I think that any posting online in general, right, is enough?
Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all. Do people really, in like not just your generation, but do people my own age like think that like posting a black square to show Black Lives Matter is like doing enough?
Yeah.
Right? What about you on MLK Day? Are you one of my white friends who posted something on MLK Day? Sorry, you were my white friends and I'm not a white person. I know exactly how racist you were or weren't.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, the black square thing. It was very heated like activism thing, and then only like a couple of months later where people realized, okay, yeah, that was like,
but
we
like,
were not doing anything with a black square on our Instagrams.
I mean, like it was COVID. Everyone was stuck at home. Everyone was having a hard time navigating like what they felt. But it is centering you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that is empathy declining? Maybe. But you know what's definitely increasing? Is self-centeredness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's like the actual problem. It's not that people are getting meaner. I think we're all just a little bit more self-involved than we used to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone's posting like way more selfies, including myself, right? Everyone's trying to look exactly like the other person on their Instagram feed.
Yeah.
Right? We're losing like original voices. All of my students are recopying their papers into ChatGPT and asking ChatGPT to make it sound better because they didn't put enough effort into getting the language right the first time. And all the ideas there. So like how much cheating is it really? And then all of my students sound like clones of one another.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like, and like all of them are doing it. Every single one. All of them think I don't know.
Do you want to break the fourth wall here and then
start naming people? I don't know. In my here and now class, it's like truly, I'm just like, if you manage to use ChatGPT for one of my assignments, I'm just frankly impressed with you.
Yeah.
Right? But like capstone students who are word vomiting their projects into ChatGPT and then asking ChatGPT to give them a project description that sounds good. Your project descriptions sound like nonsense. They sound like nonsense. All of the instructors are making fun of you behind your back.
Yeah.
Don't put that in the live edit.
Yeah. I guess that's a good place to kind of end this, to where I loved what you just said. We aren't less empathetic, but we're more self-centered now and self-involved.
But you're also like, you're all so much more like used to and grappling with being perceived than my generation ever was, right? Like you just are like noticing things about one another and also putting yourselves out there to be perceived.
Yeah.
And like the line between what you consider your private life and your public life is just like blurry all the time, right? All the time.
Yeah.
And you are all so incredibly comfortable with making that line, like just hanging out just in that line without thinking about the consequences.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true. That's very true. I feel perceived right now with this podcast, but yeah. But yeah, I think that was a very productive conversation we just had. It was very interesting.
And what was like your biggest takeaway?
I will definitely talk to you about this after the podcast as well. The man-woman thing with the gun to your head, that hypothetical. I really, really want to like dive more deep into that later.
Yeah, I'm gonna like consider it.
Yeah.
And
no, for
see
sure.
See if I'm gonna change my mind.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
I'm interested in. Yeah.
And I'm not saying like empathizing, like I think that person is like,
of course,
a good person. I'm just like,
I know exactly what you mean. I just want to know more of the thought process
but like
behind it.
Actual takeaway. What's your takeaway? If you learned one thing from this conversation, aside from the fact that I'm going to prioritize a man over a woman.
That's not at all what I'm saying. But I would say it's my takeaway from this for sure has been, I like literally agree with how you ended it. That is my takeaway, that like it's more about what benefits us, where empathy kind of comes in. Have we been in that situation before? So therefore we then, I guess, have an easier way to put ourselves into other people's shoes. The Vietnam thing that you brought up, about like people's like sons potentially dying, and therefore it being easier for them to be like, okay.
Yeah.
you
And the
know.
ones whose sons didn't die, they
Yeah.
got back like traumatized
Yeah.
young men.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
The
I would
actual
say my
takeaway, you guys, just so everyone knows, is that everyone needs to get offline. Everyone just get offline.
That's your takeaway. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, and I hope you thought it was as productive as I thought it was, and I hope you also have some points and jump offs that you could take from this. And yeah,
This was fun.
hope you guys have whatever you're doing afterwards. Have a fun time doing it. But, yep, bye.
Bye.